Marcus, for your service and sacrifice, receiving the Medal of Honor.
Thank you, General.
It is an honor to salute you.
I appreciate it, sir.
Carry on.
Connor Hadley grabbed an elderly black man by the back of his jacket and dragged him off the diner stool. Saturday morning. Packed diner. Every fork stopped. Marcus Ellison caught the counter edge, looked Connor dead in the eye. "I've been eating here longer than you've been alive, son." Connor shoved his face closer. "You talk back to me?" "My daddy's the chief of police. I say animals eat outside." He grabbed Marcus's collar with both hands, dragged him across the tile floor. Chairs screamed, plates crashed. A dozen people watched. Not one opened their mouths. Connor threw him onto the sidewalk and laughed. What he didn't know, what made him the dumbest man in Virginia that morning, was exactly who he just put his hands on. To understand what happened, you got to know who Marcus Ellison really was, because nobody in that room had a clue. Ridgemont, Virginia. A small town where everybody knows your name, your business, and what you had for dinner last week. Main Street still had those old red brick storefronts from decades ago. A barber shop with a spinning pole, a hardware store that smelled like sawdust and motor oil, a post office where the clerk remembered your birthday. A few years back, the town had voted to take down the Confederate statue in the square. Heated meetings, grown men screaming at each other. They finally removed it. But the empty stone pedestal was still there, like the town couldn't decide what it believed in yet. Right in the middle of Main Street sat Brenda's country kitchen. Brenda Ellison had owned that diner for over 2 decades. She was a black woman with arms built from flipping cast-iron skillets and a voice that could silence a room without raising above a whisper. Checkered curtains in the windows, a brass bell above the door that jingled every time someone walked in. The smell of bacon grease and fresh biscuits hit you before your foot even crossed the threshold. Regulars had their own seats, their own mugs, their own unspoken rules, and nobody had been coming to Brenda's longer than Marcus Ellison. Every Saturday morning, that bell jingled and Marcus walked in. Same routine for more than a decade. He hung his canvas jacket on the third hook by the door, his hook. Everybody knew it. Brenda already had his coffee poured before he sat down. Black, no sugar, ceramic mug with a chip on the handle that she refused to throw away. "Morning, Marcus. Morning, Brenda." That was it. That was all they needed. Marcus was in his 60s, tall, lean, the kind of lean that came from decades of discipline, not dieting. There was a faded scar running along his left forearm. His hands were rough but steady. Every time the front door opened, his eyes flicked toward it for half a second. Quick scan, then back to his newspaper. He sat with perfect posture. Not stiff, just straight, like his spine had forgotten how to slouch. He wore no medals, no pins, no hat with a military logo. Nothing that said anything about who he was or what he'd done. To anyone walking in that morning, he was just an old man drinking coffee and reading the news. That was exactly how Marcus wanted it. Now, on the other side of Ridgemont, there was a name that carried weight. Hadley. Chief Victor Hadley had run the Ridgemont Police Department for more than a decade. He was the kind of man who shook hands at church on Sunday and buried complaints on Monday. His son Gavin was in his late 20s, technically a deputy in the next county over, but in Ridgemont, Gavin moved like he wore his father's badge. Loud, entitled, always looking for someone to remind that the Hadleys ran things. Folks in town talked about Gavin the way people talk about a storm they can see coming. You didn't confront it. You just got out of the way. Black residents knew him best. Gavin had a habit of showing up where he wasn't needed. Traffic stops that lasted a long while. Noise complaints filed against houses that were dead quiet. Always the same neighborhoods. Always the same faces. And nothing ever came of the complaints, because every piece of paper with Gavin's name on it ended up on his daddy's desk. And Victor Hadley had a real talent for making paper disappear. That Saturday morning, early, the bell above Brenda's door jingled again. Gavin Hadley walked in with Deputy Logan Pierce. Logan was on duty. Full uniform, badge, belt, sidearm. Gavin was off duty. Jeans, boots, wraparound sunglasses pushed up on his head. but he walked in like he owned the room. They grabbed a booth near the window. Gavin ordered loud enough for the whole place to hear. Logan laughed at everything he said. Then Gavin noticed Marcus at the counter. His expression shifted. Not all at once. It started around the eyes, a squint. Then the jaw tightened. Then that look, the one that said someone in this room didn't belong. Brenda saw it. Her hand tightened around the coffee pot handle. The regulars saw it too. A few of them suddenly got very interested in their eggs. The air in that diner changed. You could feel it. Like the temperature dropped in seconds. It started the way it always started with Gavin. Not with a punch, not with a shout, with a voice just loud enough to make sure the right person heard it. "You know what's wrong with this town, Logan?" Gavin leaned back in his booth, arms spread across the top of the seat. He wasn't looking at Logan when he said it. He was looking at Marcus. Used to be you'd walk in here and know everybody. Now you got all sorts of people just showing up, sitting wherever they want, acting like they own the place. Logan chuckled. He was young, buzz-cut, thick neck, the kind of deputy who laughed at whatever the loudest voice in the room said. He glanced at Marcus, then back at Gavin. He knew exactly who Gavin was talking about. Marcus didn't look up. He turned the page of his newspaper, took a slow sip of coffee. The mug was warm against his palm. The bacon on his plate was still sizzling. He could hear every word Gavin said. He chose to hear none of it. Brenda was behind the counter, wiping down the same spot she'd already wiped 3 times. Her jaw was tight. Her eyes kept moving between Gavin and Marcus like she was watching a fuse burn toward a stick of dynamite. Gavin waited. He wanted a reaction, a flinch, a look, anything. He got nothing. So, he got up. The booth creaked as he stood. His boots were loud on the tile floor. A few steps. He stopped right next to Marcus's stool, close enough that Marcus could smell the cheap cologne and the cigarette he'd smoked in the parking lot. "Hey, I'm talking to you." Marcus set his coffee down slowly. He folded the newspaper and placed it on the counter. Then he looked up at Gavin. "I heard you just fine." "Yeah?" "Then why you ignoring me?" "Because there's nothing you've said worth responding to." The diner went quiet. Not the comfortable quiet of a lazy Saturday. The kind of quiet that happens when people realize something bad is about to unfold right in front of their eggs and toast. Gavin's neck turned red, started at the collar and crept up to his ears. His jaw flexed. He put both hands flat on the counter, one on each side of Marcus's plate, and leaned in. "You know who I am?" "I do." "You know who my father is?" "I do." "Then you know how things work around here. So when I talk, you listen. That's how it goes." Marcus didn't lean back, didn't lean forward, just held Gavin's stare like a man who'd stared down things far worse than a young bully in a diner. "Son, I've been coming here for more than a decade. I'll be here next Saturday, too. Whatever you're looking for this morning, you won't find it at this counter." Gavin's eye twitched. That was the thing about Marcus. He didn't give you anything to grab onto. No anger, no fear, just calm. And calm made Gavin furious. He turned toward Brenda. "Brenda, this man is making your customers uncomfortable." Brenda stopped wiping. She looked Gavin dead in the face. "Only person making anyone uncomfortable in here is you, Gavin." "Excuse me?" "You heard me. Marcus has been a customer here longer than you've been shaving. He's not bothering anyone." Gavin smiled, but it wasn't a real smile. It was the kind of smile that came right before a threat. "You know, Brenda, I was talking to my dad the other day. He mentioned your health inspection is overdue. Said it'd be a shame if someone had to come out here and take a real close look at this kitchen." The words hung in the air like smoke. Every regular in that diner knew what he was really saying. This wasn't about health codes. This was about power. Who had it? Who didn't? Brenda's hand trembled. Not from fear, from rage. Over 2 decades she'd built this place. Every table, every recipe, every early morning. And this kid was threatening to tear it apart because she wouldn't throw out a man for the color of his skin. She opened her mouth to respond, but Marcus spoke first. "That's enough." He said it quiet, firm, like a man who was used to giving orders that people followed. "Leave her out of this. Your problem is with me. So let's keep it with me." Gavin tilted his head. "My problem?" "Old man, you are the problem." He snapped his fingers at Logan without turning around. "Logan, come here." Logan stood up from the booth, adjusted his belt, walked over slow, like he wanted everyone to see the badge and the gun. He positioned himself near the front door, not blocking it exactly, but close enough. The message was clear. Gavin was off duty, but Logan wasn't. An old woman in the corner booth pulled her purse closer to her body. A young couple near the window stopped talking. A mother turned her child's face away from the counter. Everyone could feel it. The gravity in that room had shifted. All of it was pulling toward the counter where Marcus sat. "Here's what's going to happen," Gavin said. He poked Marcus's chest with his index finger. "You're going to get up. You're going to walk out that door, and you're not going to come back. Not today. Not next Saturday. Not ever." Marcus looked down at the finger on his chest, then back up at Gavin. "No." One word. That was all he said, and it landed like a grenade. Gavin's face twisted. The red on his neck climbed to his forehead. He grabbed Marcus's jacket at the shoulder and yanked him off the stool. The stool spun and crashed into the one next to it. Marcus's plate slid off the counter and shattered on the floor. Bacon, eggs, ceramic, all of it scattered across the tile. Marcus caught himself on the edge of a table. Glasses rattled. A woman gasped. He didn't fall. Decades in the army had taught his body to absorb impact and find balance before his brain even registered the hit. I said, "Move." Gavin grabbed him by the collar with both hands now, twisted the fabric, pulled him toward the door. Marcus's boots dragged across the tile. He didn't fight back. Not because he couldn't, because he chose not to. There was a difference, and that difference was everything. The brass bell above the door jingled, a cheerful little sound that had no business being part of this moment. Gavin shoved Marcus through the doorway. Marcus hit the sidewalk hard. His right knee cracked against the concrete. His palm scraped raw. The canvas jacket tore at the shoulder seam. Gavin stood in the doorway, sunlight behind him, shadow on his face. "Go find somewhere your kind belongs, dog." Then he turned back to the diner, grinning, clapped Logan on the shoulder like they just won a game. Inside, a dozen people sat frozen, forks in the air, mouths open, eyes wide. Not one of them moved. Not one of them spoke. A woman near the window had her phone out. Her hands were shaking. The camera was recording. Outside, Marcus Ellison sat on the sidewalk of the town where he was born. His knee was bleeding through his khakis. His palms were raw and pink. The jacket his wife Denise had given him for their anniversary was torn at the shoulder. He didn't yell, didn't pound the ground, didn't call for help. He took a breath, then another. He pressed his hands flat on the concrete and pushed himself up, slowly. The way a man gets up when he wants you to know he's choosing to rise, not because you told him to. Brenda came running out the front door, the bell jingling behind her. She had a damp towel in one hand and fury in her eyes. Marcus, are you okay? Let me see your hands." "I'm fine, Brenda. You are not fine. That boy just in my restaurant. I swear to God." "Brenda." Marcus put his hand on her arm. Gentle, steady. "I'm fine." She looked at him, tears in her eyes. Not from sadness, from the kind of anger that has nowhere to go. Marcus brushed off his knees, straightened his torn jacket, and stood there on that sidewalk bleeding with the same posture he'd carried through decades of service. Inside the diner, Gavin Hadley sat down at the counter right on Marcus's stool. He picked up what was left of Marcus's coffee and took a sip. "Brenda, how about some fresh bacon over here?" Marcus walked to his truck. It was parked at the far end of the lot, a dark green Ford, clean but not flashy. The kind of truck a man drives when he doesn't need anyone to notice him. He opened the driver's side door. His hands were still raw from the concrete. Tiny beads of blood sat on his palms like red dew. He reached into the glove compartment for a napkin and pressed it against the scrape on his right knee. He wasn't running. He wasn't hiding. He was removing himself from a situation the way a man with decades of military training knew how to do. De-escalate. Withdraw. Don't give them what they want. But Gavin wasn't done. The diner door swung open. The brass bell jingled. Gavin walked out with Logan 2 steps behind him, sunglasses back on, thumbs hooked in his belt loops, walking slow, the way a man walks when he thinks the whole world is his sidewalk. Hey, where do you think you're going? Marcus didn't turn around. He folded the napkin and placed it in his pocket. I'm leaving. That's what you wanted. I didn't say you could leave. I said you could leave the diner. I didn't say anything about the parking lot. Marcus turned around, looked at Gavin, then at Logan. Logan's hand was resting on his belt, not on his weapon, but close enough to send a message. What do you want, Gavin? I want to know who you are. Show me some ID. You're off duty. You have no authority to ask me for identification. Gavin smiled. That same smile from the diner, the one that came before the threat. I'm off duty. Logan's not. He jerked his thumb toward the deputy. Logan, ask the man for his ID. Logan stepped forward, cleared his throat, tried to make his voice sound official. Sir, I'm going to need to see some identification. Marcus looked at Logan for a long moment. He could have argued. He knew his rights better than either of these men ever would. But he also knew what happened to black men who argued with badges in small-town parking lots. He reached into his back pocket, slow, deliberate, making sure both hands were visible at all times. He pulled out his wallet and handed over his Virginia driver's license. Logan took it, walked back to his cruiser, ran it through the system. Marcus stood by his truck with his arms at his sides. The morning sun was getting warmer now. A bead of sweat rolled down the side of his neck. A short while later, Logan walked back. He's clean. No warrants, no record, nothing. Gavin's jaw flexed. He didn't like clean. Clean meant he had nothing to hold on to. Clean meant this old man was exactly what he appeared to be, a law-abiding citizen who'd been minding his own business. But Gavin Hadley didn't operate on facts. He operated on feelings. And his feeling right now was that this man had embarrassed him by not being afraid. Something doesn't feel right. Gavin started walking around Marcus's truck, slow circle, running his hand along the side panel like he was inspecting livestock. You know, Logan, I think I smell something. Smell what? Marijuana. Yeah, definitely. Coming from this vehicle. Marcus's voice was steady. There is no marijuana in this truck. There has never been marijuana in this truck. Well, I guess we'll find out. Logan, open it up. Logan hesitated, just for a second. A flicker of something, maybe conscience, maybe just nerves, crossed his face. Then it was gone. He opened the passenger side door of Marcus's truck without consent, without a warrant, without probable cause. Marcus spoke clearly, loud enough for anyone in earshot. I do not consent to this search. I am stating for the record that I do not consent. Noted, Gavin said. He wasn't even looking at Marcus. He was already rummaging through the glove compartment. Registration papers, a pack of tissues, a small flashlight. He tossed each item onto the passenger seat like he was going through a junk drawer. Logan searched the back seat, floor mats, an old blanket, a pair of reading glasses in a case. Nothing. Then Gavin found it. Under the back seat, a locked metal case, dark brown about the size of a shoebox, heavy. Well, what do we have here? Marcus's jaw tightened. For the first time that morning, something shifted in his eyes. Not fear. Something deeper. Something protective. That is my personal property. It is locked. and you have no right to open it. Logan, get me something to pry this open. Gavin, I don't think we should. Did I stutter? Open it. Logan pulled a flathead screwdriver from his cruiser's toolkit. He handed it to Gavin. Gavin jammed it into the latch and twisted. The cheap lock gave way with a snap. He flipped the case open. Inside, laid out on a bed of dark velvet, were 4 items: a faded military service photograph, a young black man in dress uniform, standing tall, eyes forward, a carefully folded American flag in a triangular frame, a leather-bound journal with worn edges, and a small velvet box. Gavin picked up the velvet box and opened it. Inside sat a bronze star medal. The ribbon was slightly faded. The medal still caught the light. He held it up between 2 fingers like it was a toy from a cereal box. The hell is this? What? You buy this at a pawn shop? Pick it up at a yard sale? Marcus said nothing, but his hands, those steady, disciplined hands, closed into fists at his sides. Gavin tossed the medal. Just tossed it. It hit the asphalt, bounced once, and rolled under the truck. Junk. He dropped the case on the ground. The photograph slid out onto the pavement. The journal's pages fluttered in the morning breeze. Logan, I'm not finding anything illegal, but this man clearly had an attitude problem back in the diner. I think we need to hold him here until we figure out what's going on. Logan pulled out his handcuffs, looked at Marcus. Sir, I'm going to need you to sit down on the curb. On what charge? Obstruction. Obstruction of what? No answer. Because there was no answer. There was no crime. There was no charge. There was nothing except 2 men with a badge and a last name, and 1 man with brown skin who'd refused to be afraid. Marcus sat down on the curb, an elderly man, a veteran, sitting on a concrete curb in a diner parking lot in his own hometown, his knees aching, his palms still raw, his bronze star somewhere under his truck in the dirt. Gavin stood over him, pulled out his phone, threw his arm around Logan's shoulder, held the phone out at arm's length. Click. A selfie. The 2 of them grinning. Marcus on the curb behind them like a prop. Gavin looked at the photo and laughed. Classic. He didn't notice the woman inside the diner. The one by the window. The one whose hands had stopped shaking. Her phone was pressed flat against the glass. The red recording dot was still blinking. And he didn't notice Brenda in the back hallway, phone pressed to her ear, whispering fast. Ray, it's Brenda. You need to come now. They've got Marcus in the parking lot. It's bad. It's real bad. 20 minutes passed. Marcus sat on that curb like a man who'd waited in worse places. Deserts, foxholes, hospital corridors where the news was never good. 20 minutes was nothing to a man like him. Brenda brought him a cup of coffee, walked right past Gavin and Logan without looking at either one of them, set the mug on the curb next to Marcus and squeezed his shoulder. Hang on, Marcus. I'm all right, Brenda. I've sat in worse spots than this. She went back inside. The bell jingled behind her. Gavin was inside now, sitting at the counter eating. Not his food, Marcus's food. Brenda had made a fresh plate of bacon and eggs for Marcus right before everything went sideways. Gavin pulled it across the counter and dug in like he'd ordered it himself. Brenda, these eggs are cold. You want to heat these up for me? Brenda didn't answer. She stood at the register with her arms crossed and her eyes on the parking lot. Gavin talked with his mouth full, loud, bragging to Logan about how his dad would handle everything. Relax. Even if the old man complains, my dad'll bury it. He always does. Remember that thing last summer? Gone, like it never happened. Logan nodded, but he wasn't laughing anymore. Something about the way Marcus had sat down on that curb, calm, quiet, like he was waiting for something specific, made Logan's stomach feel wrong. Gavin pulled out his phone and called his father. Hey, Dad. Yeah, some guy at Brenda's causing trouble. Nothing serious. I handled it. Just wanted to give you a heads up in case someone calls. He hung up, took another bite of bacon, wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. Then Logan looked out the window. Gavin. What? Gavin, look! A black SUV pulled into the parking lot. Government plates, tinted windows. It stopped a short distance from where Marcus was sitting. Then a second one. Then a third. The engines idled, low and heavy. The kind of sound that vibrates in your chest before you even understand what you're looking at. Gavin stood up slowly. The fork was still in his hand. The door of the lead vehicle opened. A man stepped out. He was tall, in his 60s, African American, and he was wearing the full-dress uniform of the United States Army. Dark blue jacket, gold buttons, ribbons covering the left side of his chest like a wall of color. And on each shoulder, 4 stars. 4 silver stars on each shoulder. General Harlan Tate, Commanding General, United States Army Forces Command. 2 aides stepped out behind him. Then a military attorney in uniform. Then a driver who stayed by the vehicle with his hands folded. The general didn't look at the diner, didn't look at Gavin through the window, didn't look at any of the faces now pressing against the glass. He walked straight to Marcus. Marcus saw him coming. He set the coffee mug down on the curb, pressed his raw palms against his knees, and pushed himself to his feet. Slow, steady, the same way he'd gotten up from the sidewalk earlier, choosing to rise. General Tate stopped a short distance in front of him. The parking lot was dead silent. No birds, no traffic. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. And then, General Harlan Tate, a 4-star general of the United States Army, one of the highest-ranking military officers in the country, raised his right hand to his brow. He saluted Marcus Ellison first. Let me explain something. In the United States military, a lower-ranking person always salutes a higher-ranking officer first. Always. That's the rule. A sergeant salutes a captain. A colonel salutes a general. That's how it works. But there is one exception: the Medal of Honor. Any service member, regardless of rank, regardless of stars, salutes a Medal of Honor recipient first. A 4-star general, a chairman of the Joint Chiefs, even the President of the United States will initiate the salute. Marcus Ellison was a retired sergeant major. Decades of service, multiple combat deployments, and a Medal of Honor. The highest military decoration the United States of America can bestow upon a human being. That medal wasn't in his case. That one was in a display at the Pentagon. The bronze star that Gavin threw in the dirt was just one of many. Marcus straightened his torn jacket, lifted his chin, and returned the salute. Clean, sharp, perfect, like the decades had never left his bones. Tate dropped the salute, stepped forward, took Marcus's hand in both of his. Sergeant Major Ellison, I got the call. I was at Fort Belvoir. Came as fast as I could. Appreciate you coming, Harlan. Didn't want to make it a thing. It was already a thing, Marcus. Inside the diner, Gavin Hadley stood at the window. The fork had fallen from his hand somewhere in the last minute. His face was white, not red anymore. White, the kind of white that happens when every drop of blood in your body decides to leave your head all at once. Logan was behind him. He'd taken off his sunglasses. His hand was no longer near his belt. It was hanging at his side, limp, like it didn't belong to him anymore. The woman with the phone moved to the doorway, still recording, the red dot still blinking. A dozen people who hadn't said a word now watched through the glass as a 4-star general held the hand of the man they'd let get dragged across the floor. General Tate turned around. He looked at the diner, then at the parking lot, then at Logan Pierce, who was standing near the entrance, like a man who'd forgotten how legs worked. You, deputy. Come here. Logan walked over, or tried to. His boots scraped the asphalt like they weighed far too much. He stopped a short distance from the general. Couldn't look him in the eye. Are you aware that you just conducted an illegal search of this man's vehicle? No warrant, no probable cause, no consent. Logan opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Are you aware that you detained this man without charge? A man who has committed no crime. A man who has served this country for decades. A man who has received the Medal of Honor from the President of the United States. Logan's bottom lip trembled. He looked like a kid who'd been caught stealing and just realized his parents were standing right behind him. "Sir, Gavin said. "I didn't ask what Gavin said. I asked what you did." Tate's military attorney was already on the phone. 3 calls in rapid succession. The county sheriff's department, the state attorney general's office, and a contact at the Pentagon's public affairs division. He spoke low and fast, writing in a small notebook between calls. Then Tate looked at the diner door. "Where is he? The one who started this?" Gavin Hadley stepped outside. He didn't strut this time, didn't swing his arms, didn't hook his thumbs in his belt loops. He walked through that door like a man walking into a courtroom where the verdict was already in. "Sir, Listen." This was a misunderstanding. I didn't know Tate cut him off. Not with a shout, with a voice so calm it was worse than any scream. "You didn't know what? You didn't know he was a veteran? You didn't know he had a Medal of Honor? Tell me something, son. If he didn't have that medal, if he was just an elderly black man eating breakfast, would what you did have been acceptable then?" Gavin's mouth opened, closed, opened again. "Nothing. That's what I thought." Brenda stepped into the doorway, arms crossed, eyes red but steady. "General, I've got the security camera footage. Every second from the moment he walked in to the moment you pulled up. Audio, too." The woman with the phone raised it from behind Brenda's shoulder. "I got it, too. All of it." Tate nodded. "Good. Hold on to it. You're going to need it." A short while later, a county sheriff's cruiser pulled into the lot. Not Ridgemont PD County. This was outside General Hadley's hands now. 2 deputies stepped out. They walked straight to Gavin. "Gavin Hadley, you're under arrest. Assault, unlawful detention, theft of personal property, deprivation of civil rights under color of law." Gavin's face crumbled. "Theft? What theft?" "The medal you threw on the ground, sir. That's federal property and a national honor. You damaged and discarded it intentionally." They turned him around, cuffed his wrists behind his back. The click of the handcuffs echoed off the brick storefronts of Main Street. Logan Pierce was placed on immediate administrative leave on the spot. His badge was taken. His service weapon was taken. His body camera had not been activated during the entire incident. Of course it hadn't, but it didn't matter. Brenda's camera caught everything. The bystander's phone caught everything. Every word, every shove, every laugh. A short while later, Gavin sat in the back of a county cruiser. He pulled out his phone with cuffed hands and called his father. Dad, you need to come get me. They're arresting me. This is insane. Call someone." Victor Hadley made calls. He called the county sheriff. Voicemail. He called the district attorney. Voicemail. He called Judge Whitmore, who owed him a favor from years back. Voicemail. Nobody picked up. Not one person. The political math had changed in real time. Nobody wanted their name anywhere near this story. Back in the parking lot, Marcus Ellison knelt beside his truck. He reached under the chassis and picked up his Bronze Star, brushed the dirt off with his thumb, held it in his palm for a moment, then placed it back in the velvet box, back in the case, and closed the lid. He shook Tate's hand one more time, thanked Brenda, got in his truck, and drove home. No speech, no celebration, no fist in the air, just a man driving home on a Saturday morning, the way he was supposed to earlier. The video hit the internet before Gavin's mugshot was even taken. The woman from the diner. Her name was Tara Ellis, in her 30s, mother of 2. Posted the footage on every platform she had. No filter, no edit, no caption, except a few words. This happened in Ridgemont today. By that evening, it had hundreds of thousands of views. By the next morning, over 1 million. By the following afternoon, millions. And climbing. The title that spread fastest across every share, every repost, every news segment. Police chief's son assaults Medal of Honor veteran at diner. It played on major networks. For once, every network agreed on the same thing. The footage was undeniable. There was no angle that made Gavin look like anything other than exactly what he was. The comment sections exploded. Thousands of them. Veterans who'd served alongside men like Marcus. Parents who imagined their father sitting on that curb. Strangers who'd never been to Ridgemont and never would, but felt the concrete under Marcus's knees like it was their own. Veterans organizations issued formal statements within days. Every statement said some version of the same thing. This man bled for his country, and his country let him get dragged across a diner floor. Civil rights groups called for a full investigation, not just of Gavin, of the entire Ridgemont Police Department, because everyone watching that video had the same question. If Gavin felt comfortable doing this in public, on camera, in broad daylight, what had he done when nobody was watching? The state attorney general answered that question. Her name was Catherine Wells. She launched a formal investigation days after the incident. Her office pulled every complaint filed against Gavin Hadley in recent years. There were multiple. Several of them involved physical confrontation. All of them victims were black. All of them complaints had been filed with the Ridgemont Police Department, and all of them had disappeared. No investigation, no follow-up, no paper trail. They simply stopped existing the moment they landed on Chief Victor Hadley's desk. One complaint was from a young college student who'd been pulled over for a minor issue. Gavin had made him lie face down on the road for a long while, in cold weather, on wet asphalt. The young man filed a report. Nothing happened. Another was from a school teacher. Gavin had shown up at her door late at night over a noise complaint from a neighbor. There was no noise. Her house was silent. He searched her living room without permission. She filed a report. Nothing happened. The third was from an elderly church deacon. Gavin had accused him of shoplifting at a gas station. The store camera showed the man had paid for everything. Gavin detained him for a long while in the parking lot anyway. He filed a report. Nothing happened. Several people, several years, several reports, all buried, all black. The investigation expanded. Internal Affairs dove into Chief Victor Hadley's department. What they found was a system built on silence, racial profiling statistics that had never been reported to the state, use of force incidents that were logged as resolved with no documentation, a department budget with unexplained expenses routed through a personal account, more than a decade of leadership, more than a decade of looking the other way, more than a decade of protecting his son and calling it police work. The trial began several weeks after the diner incident. Ridgemont County Courthouse. The courtroom was standing room only. News cameras outside. Reporters from multiple states. A sketch artist in the front row because cameras weren't allowed inside. The prosecution played the diner footage first. Several minutes. No narration, no commentary, just the raw video. Gavin grabbing Marcus's collar, the coffee mug shattering. Marcus's knees hitting the sidewalk. Gavin laughing. The selfie. The bronze star bouncing off the asphalt. The jury watched in silence. One woman in the back row pressed her hand over her mouth. A man in the front row closed his eyes during the selfie. Marcus Ellison took the stand. He wore a dark suit, no medals. He spoke the way he always spoke. Quiet, steady, precise. He described the morning, the coffee, the newspaper. The first words Gavin said, every detail in order, without emotion. When the prosecutor asked how he felt when Gavin threw his bronze star on the ground, Marcus paused for a few seconds. That medal was given to me by a commanding officer who didn't make it home. I carried it for him, not for me. The courtroom was silent for a long time after that. Gavin's defense attorney argued misunderstanding, poor judgment, a young man who made a mistake. He used the word regret multiple times in his closing statement. The jury deliberated for a couple of hours. Guilty on all counts: assault, unlawful detention, deprivation of civil rights under color of law. The judge, Patricia Nolan, many years on the bench, sentenced Gavin Hadley to several years in federal prison. No parole for the first portion. Gavin stood motionless when the sentence was read. His mother sobbed in the gallery. His father wasn't there. Victor Hadley had been advised by his own attorney not to appear. Logan Pierce's case was handled separately. He took a plea deal, a year and a half in a minimum security facility, permanent revocation of his law enforcement certification. He would never carry a badge again. The civil suit came next. Terrence Hale, civil rights attorney out of Richmond, many years of practice, known for never losing a case he believed in, represented Marcus. The suit named Gavin Hadley, Logan Pierce, the Ridgemont Police Department, and the county. The jury awarded Marcus Ellison nearly $3 million in damages. And then came Victor Hadley's turn. The state attorney general's investigation had built a case that stretched back many years. Obstruction of justice, official misconduct, suppression of evidence, misuse of public funds. Victor Hadley resigned on a weekday morning. He was indicted days later. His long career ended not with a press conference, not with a farewell speech, with a mugshot taken in the same booking room where his son had been taken weeks earlier. The empty pedestal on Main Street, the one where the Confederate statue used to stand, the city council voted unanimously to replace it with a monument to community service. They asked Marcus to speak at the dedication. He said a few sentences. The crowd gave him a standing ovation. Marcus and Denise still go to Brenda's every Saturday. Same time, same stool, same coffee. Black, no sugar, ceramic mug with a chip on the handle. Brenda still pours it before he sits down. They still say the same thing every week. Morning, Marcus. Morning, Brenda. The jacket got fixed. Denise took it to a tailor on the nearby route the Monday after everything happened. The woman didn't charge her. Said she'd seen the video. Said it was the least she could do. Marcus wears it every Saturday. Same hook by the door. Third one from the left. The diner looks a little different now. Brenda added a patio out back. Several tables with red umbrellas, string lights that glow warm on summer evenings. Business increased significantly after the story broke. People drive in from surrounding areas just to eat at the place they saw on the news. There's a framed photograph hanging on the wall next to the register. Marcus and General Tate shaking hands in the parking lot. Brenda took it herself. She had it printed on thick matte paper and put it in a dark wooden frame. Nobody asks about it. Everybody knows. And next to the front door, just below the brass bell, there's a small bronze plaque. 4 words, "Everyone belongs here." General Tate visits once a year, always in the fall. He drives down from D.C. in his personal car. No convoy, no aides, no stars on his shoulders, just an old friend visiting another old friend. They sit in the same booth by the window. Brenda brings them the same thing. 2 plates of bacon, eggs, and biscuits. Coffee. No menus needed. They don't talk about that Saturday. They talk about Tate's granddaughter who just started college. They talk about Marcus's vegetable garden and the tomatoes that won't cooperate. They argue about fishing spots. Tate thinks the James River is better. Marcus swears by the Shenandoah. They never agree. They never stop arguing about it. When Tate leaves, they shake hands in the parking lot. Same spot where the salute happened. Neither of them mentions it. They don't have to. Gavin Hadley is in a federal correctional facility. He works in the laundry unit. He doesn't get visitors. His commissary account receives no deposits. His mother stopped coming after a short time. She said the drive was too long. Everybody knew that wasn't the real reason. Logan Pierce moved to another state after his release, changed his last name, works at an auto parts warehouse. He has never applied for another law enforcement position. He never will. Victor Hadley awaits trial. His attorneys have requested multiple delays. The state attorney general has denied every one. The case is expected to go before a jury later. Many years of buried complaints, many years of silence, all of it laid out on paper waiting for 12 people to read. The Ridgemont Police Department operates under a federal consent decree now. Mandatory bias training, civilian oversight board, body cameras that cannot be turned off during any interaction with the public. Every complaint gets logged, tracked, and reviewed by an independent monitor. It's not perfect. No system is. But it's not what it was. Tara Ellis, the woman who filmed the video, was offered money by media companies for exclusive rights. She turned all of them down. She said the video didn't belong to her. It belonged to everybody who'd ever been treated like Marcus, and didn't have a general who picked up the phone. And that's the thing. Marcus's power was never the medal, never the phone call, never the general with 3 black SUVs. It was that he never broke. He sat on that curb with his palms bleeding and his dignity completely intact. You can't take something from a man who refuses to let go of it. This story stays with you. An elderly veteran who had served his country for decades was humiliated in public by a young man who thought his last name gave him power. But the truth came out, and justice, slow but sure, found its way. Sometimes the smallest acts of courage ripple out further than we could ever imagine, and sometimes the people we underestimate turn out to be the ones who change everything for us. If this story touched you, remember that dignity cannot be stolen from someone who refuses to surrender it. It just needs one person willing to stand when others look away.